Welcome to the show. My name is Zai, the money guy, and we're live on Sunday night. It is November 29th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you, thank you. You're too kind, too kind. And we got an ad. Okay. So welcome my viewers. We're live. Thank you, thank you. You're too kind. It's November 29th, 2021. This is episode 1. Welcome to the show. My name is Zai, the money guy. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Oh, by the way, this episode is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it. That's a Sprite and at a quarter pounder. Delicious. All right, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. This is Live with Zai, Sunday Night Live. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it. I had a quarter pounder meal, which is delicious. A quarter pounder is called, of course, Royale with cheese. Let me tell you a little bit about myself for tonight's episode. I'm not a financial guru per se, right? I mean, I don't have a CPA or a CMA, but instead I consider myself an expert in my finances, and I live, for the most part, below my means. I have little to no credit card debt. I have quite a robust emergency fund, and I track all of my spending, and I use a tool called YNAB. You Need a Budget, and it's one of my favorite budgeting software tools. I'm a power user. There's a whole YNAB community. So that's a little bit about me. So that's the intro section of the program. And if you've joined, I'd love to learn a little bit about you. Feel free to leave a comment or even a question. And I'm going to get questions towards the end of the show. This is a show. We're live on Sunday night. You've joined Zai the Money Guy. Thank you very much for joining. I see one person has joined, and I just want to say welcome to you. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this just to make sure. Now, my lives are going to be slightly different, okay? I actually did put together an agenda, and we're going to go through some topics today, and then hopefully I'm going to get into some questions towards the end of the show. But welcome if you have joined. Glad to have you here. Thank you so much. Welcome to Sunday Night Live with Zai. I'm Zai the Money Guy. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was what's in the news. And this particular article really stood out. Now, the article is a CNBC article, okay? And it's by a girl named Corey Steig. And in the article, it says, here's the headline: The psychological difference between spenders and savers, and what your habits say about your personality. And this article, I think it really stood out for me. And in particular, there's, I think, two types of people when it comes to money, right? So one, she classifies people as being stressed out with their money, right? So people who are anxious with their money tend to shop a little bit more, and they alleviate their stress by stress shopping, right? So I think that makes sense. And there's another type of person, so someone who is anxious about perhaps the future, or maybe even about their job security. There are, I guess, anxious types of money spenders. So there are people who are stressed by money, there are people who are anxious. And what was interesting about, I think, this article, and her name is Corey Steig, okay, so it's a CNBC article, so if you want to check it out, her name is Corey Stieg. She says that people tend to pick up their spending habits from their mothers. Hello, Jonathan. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Sunday Night Live with Zai. I'm your host. We got a great program for you today, so I really appreciate you joining. I hope I can provide you some value and some entertainment. I was just talking about an article in CNBC by Corey Stieg, and she says that there's a psychological difference between spenders and savers and what your habits say about your personality. Okay, so she talked about some people who, when they get stressed, they shop more. And then there's the people who are more anxious with their money, and people who are anxious with their money, they tend to hold on to their money, right? To me, that makes sense. And then what was really interesting was, awesome, thank you for listening. What was really interesting is people tend to pick up their spending habits from their mothers. That's interesting. And when I think of when I was a kid, um, I might consider that actually as, something that might be true because I was always, okay, not you, good. I was always around my mom and she would always take me shopping and I love my mom to death, but she would come home with a lot of bags, like from Zellers, from Kmart, from the Bay. I distinctly remember that. And I remember my dad, and I didn't like this about my dad, he was actually more tight with his money. And I don't know, that kind of, I think, maybe rubbed me the wrong way. But in hindsight, my dad was probably smarter with his money. I'm not saying my mom wasn't smart, but um, but it's interesting. So in the article, she says that we tend to pick up our spending habits from our mothers. And if you're joining, welcome to Sunday Night Live with Zai. This is a half an hour show every Sunday at 7 p.m. This is episode 1. You guys are part of episode 1, so thank you for that. It is filmed in front of a live audience, so you can hear the audience. Thank you. And just a reminder, this episode is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it. I watched an amazing TikTok today where this guy went and he ordered a Sprite, and it blew his mind. So I got a Sprite as well. It's quite delicious. Okay, back to the article. So the CNBC article says that your spending habits say a little something about your personality, right? And now this is another point that's really interesting from this article. The amount of money that you make or the amount of money that you have, it doesn't impact whether you're a spender or a saver. And to me, I totally agree with that. I'm not sure if you guys agree with that or not, but I know a few people who are very well off with money. Quite literally, they're in Toronto, they're entrepreneurs. A few of them are multi-millionaires. And it looks like one of our users has several businesses and you pull in 6 fingers, that's amazing. And for the most part, a lot of them are, I would call them frugal, or they're very smart with their money. You gamble and you party too much. Okay, no problem. This is a judgment-free zone. My show is a judgment-free zone. But I find that interesting. I don't think the total amount of money you have determines your habits, right? You could be quite well off and have very high spending habits. You could also be quite well off and be very frugal. I don't want to say stingy with money, but a couple of CEOs that I've worked with have been stingy with their money. But it's interesting. There was one CEO that I used to party with, and he would spend nothing on the company, but anytime we would go out and party, he would buy the whole bar. So they know how to have fun with their money. But I thought in the article that was a really good point. So the amount of money you make doesn't impact whether you're a spender or a saver. Now, a couple other, so 3 main points from this article. So if you're the type who is stressed out by money, then according to this article, you might not be enjoying your life, right? So to me, it sounds like you're probably enjoying your life. You make good money, you're enjoying your life, so that's amazing. I am from Toronto. This show is being filmed live from Toronto. So so hello to you if you're from the six. Okay, so the second point from the article is people who live in the moment spend their money freely, right? So they sort of accept life and they're a little bit more liberal with their money. They're not thinking about the future. Maybe they're not thinking about their retirement. So I found that interesting. So if you're living in the moment, you might be more of a free spender. And then there's this third person. So far I talked about two different types. People who are stressed out about money, right? They might not be enjoying their life because they're afraid to spend their money. And then people who live in the moment, they spend more freely. They kind of accept life for what it is and they spend. But then there's a third type, which is classified as someone who is frugal. And it seems like you definitely are, and that is me because I live in the now, that's for sure. You know what? These are just different personality types, right? So there's no judgment. If you're living in the now, that's a great way to live. I probably fall into this third category, and my channel sort of revolves around this theme, and it is of frugality. And when I first sort of heard of the term frugality, I used to think, okay, well, like, what does that mean? Is it someone who's cheap? But I don't think it is someone who's cheap or someone who's stingy with their money. Instead, I think it's someone who saves their money but does not waste it, right? That's what I think being frugal means. Someone who saves their money but doesn't waste it. And usually people who are frugal have a good amount of savings and not very much credit card debt. So I will say that I do have a good amount of savings and I have zero credit card debt. So not trying to brag, but there's another interesting point about this, about frugality from this article. And there are people who compete on frugal status, right? So they kind of walk around and like, I'm more frugal than you are, which to me, that's kind of weird, but maybe that's a status thing, right? So some people have status about being rich. Some people have status about being frugal. For me, I'm about balance. I think balance is super important. Okay, so you have a contingency plan in case you lose everything on the table. All right, you're definitely living in the moment. I hope you do well on the tables. It's good to have a contingency plan. It's like an emergency fund, right? So good on you, man. Okay, that's the first article. So we're in the first segment of the show, and I'm just going to go through a couple of more articles, and then we're going to go into what I'm going to call a teachable moment. And then if you have any questions, we'll go to that. So I just want to thank you for joining Sunday Night Live with Zai. This is episode 1. I just went live. I appreciate you joining. I hope I can provide you some value. I'm trying to grow my audience so that one day we're going to have thousands of people here, but it doesn't matter. I have one person. That's all that matters. And I appreciate it. Let's talk about another article. So, all right, man. Thanks, man. Thank you, Jonathan. You're far too kind. Now, because you told me you are from Toronto, this next article is from BlogTO. Okay, and I want to get your opinion on this. So, here is the article. Here's the headline. Condo sales have dropped by more than 50% in some downtown Toronto buildings. Okay, now this is a strange one. So I've been keeping my eye on the condo market, especially downtown. I live uptown. Appreciate you, bro. So I want to ask you guys what you guys think about condo sales dropping, because although the sales numbers are dropping, the prices are increasing. There's another Huffington Post article. I'm not sure if I have it here, but it's the exact opposite. So Huffington Post is talking about prices increasing, but condo sales, excuse me, are decreasing. That makes no sense. Just doesn't make sense to me. And in particular, I remember doing a little bit of research, and the small units, they call these micro units in downtown Toronto, and these are less than 500 square feet. There's a ton of them, and they're all in the market right now. They're all for sale. The prices haven't dropped, but they're vacant. And I think they were investment properties. So a lot of people were looking at these units to invest their money into them. Now, what happened was obviously COVID hit, and people are leaving the downtown core. Yes, take a look at it. It might actually be, I'm not here to throw out investment advice, but there might be an opportunity because once the condo prices go down, then I think it will be much better for buyers. But right now it's ridiculous. The prices are actually going up, but the sales are dropping dramatically, and it's the micro units. I don't know enough about real estate to suggest that a micro unit is a good investment because they are small. They're less than one bedroom, so I'm not sure how much they would appreciate. Um, but you never know. There could be an opportunity around the corner, and it might be a good time to save money for a down payment or save money for such an opportunity. So, Toronto. So the other article that I was talking about says Toronto condo prices soar to nearly 1 million as sales drop 32%. So to me, that's like opposite, right? Sales drop, prices increase. Usually it should be sales drop, prices drop, right? So I don't know. Does anyone know? Do you know why that that is the case? Why prices continue to stay high? Does anyone know? Strange. Okay. Let's take a look at another article. 200 acres of land in Manitoba for 200,000. So you are a smart investor. I will tell you that much because um, I don't know if you follow. There's an individual named Jim Chung. He's from Toronto. He has an amazing TikTok account. So um, if you follow him, he is a millionaire. He's a multimillionaire. I know who he is personally. And what he did was during the crash, during the real estate crash, he took his money and he started buying properties in Phoenix. I think it was Phoenix in Arizona. Yeah, take a look at him, Jim Chung. He's awesome. And Jim Chung, so I think it's Cheoung, Jim. He has a book as well. I bought his book. It's amazing. Um, but when the real estate crash happened, he bought properties for like $35,000 in Phoenix. And I think he bought one or two of them. And then um, he started generating rental income and he became a millionaire. He just he had the money ready when he needed it. And he was smart. So, like when people invest in like $1 million units, to me, it's like, that doesn't make sense. So when I see someone like yourself talking about investing in 200 acres in Manitoba for 200 grand, that is, to me, incredibly smart. So I hope that works out for you. I really do. I'm looking for my next opportunity, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until prices drop. Um, so this next article says, improving your relationship with money is worth the effort. Um, right, no problem. And I think so. The article says identifying your money-related emotions, right? And I think emotions, cryptocurrency, yeah, that could be a good opportunity. I think emotions and money, they go hand in hand. We talked about people who are more stressed and worried about their money can be a little bit anxious. They hold on to it. Um, I think managing your money is It's all about emotions, right? So there's a famous study called the Stanford marshmallow test, right? So they gave these kids these marshmallows, and they put a marshmallow in front of the kid, and they said, "We don't want you to eat the marshmallow. We're going to leave the room for about 5 minutes, and we're going to come back and we're going to see if you ate the marshmallow or not." And they did this with a whole bunch of kids, and they found out that the kids who didn't eat the marshmallow and waited for the entire 5 minutes, they actually tracked these kids over like 20 years. And the ones who were able to temper their sort of gratification and their emotion, excuse me, ended up becoming more successful, right? So that's a famous test. It's called the Stanford marshmallow test. And I think emotions and money, they go hand in hand. And, I created this channel to teach people better habits with their money. And I think part of that is working on your emotions. Um, so you turn $50 into five grand. That's amazing. I'm not into crypto. It's funny. My background is in crypto. I do that for a living, but I do blockchain for a living. But I don't actually invest too much of my money, anyways. A little bit of it, just my spending money into cryptocurrency. But that's cool. Yes, 100% of money is emotions, and I think one of the reasons I created this account was to help people manage their emotions, and I think people sort of look at money in a very complicated way, and um, they look at it in a very emotional way, right? And I don't think it has to be that way. I think if you can get over your emotions and you can just put together a good plan, then you can be much better with your money, right? So let me see what else this article. So this article is not really good. It's okay. Let's take a look at my final article here. So, 4 smart saving strategies for 2021 that you can start now. Okay, so this is a CBS News article. 4 smart saving strategies for 2021 that you can start now. It's by Ken Tuman. Let's see what he says. He says, create a savings plan. So, I think that is probably quite straightforward advice, right? And he says the first step is building an emergency fund. Start by determining how much you need. I think that makes sense. I actually in one of my I actually have a few courses on money, and I talk about determining how to create an emergency fund and to determine the exact amount that you will require for your fund. So I think that is good advice. I think right now, especially for a lot of people who are going through the pandemic. So, Jonathan, I don't know, like, how did you pan out during the pandemic? Did you do all right? Um, I think if a lot of people, I think in hindsight it's easy to say, but if a lot of people worked on their emergency fund, then they would be in a better position because it's stressful. It's stressful when you lose a job or when we're hit by a pandemic. Um, I I managed over the span of about 3 years to build my emergency fund to about 14 months. So I could go probably a year without any income. And for me, that came out of one of my own experiences. So earlier in my career, I was almost laid off, almost fired. And that was a big shock. And I didn't want to feel that feeling ever again. And I didn't want to be put in that position. So what I did was I worked on building an emergency fund of about 14 months. And the good news is you only have to build it once, and once you've built it up, you have it forever. So, Jonathan, I don't know, do you have an emergency fund? Did you plan for, you mentioned a rainy day fund at one point, right? I think you did. You have a contingency plan, which I think is always good. All right. So, welcome to Sunday Night Live with Zai. If you're just joining, this is episode 1. Thank you for joining, everyone. So we've been looking at some of the money news um, in the different papers, and we're talking about this latest article that says 4 smart saving strategies for 2021 that you can start now. So the first one is create a savings plan. I think that one is obvious. The second point, look for a checking account with automatic saving features. And I think that's a good point as well. I remember I think I had a Tangerine account that would automatically take money out of my checking account and move it directly to my Tangerine TFSA, right? So I think that is something worth looking into as well. Find checking and savings accounts that help you earn more. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a good savings account that will actually pay you interest. You can find I think there are a few high interest savings accounts that are on the market that can give you, I think, maybe 2 to 3%. So um, if you need to create a bucket where you need to hold some cash, then you should probably put it into a high interest savings account, right? And maybe that money is for your emergency fund because it's liquid. Maybe that money is for your next opportunity when, who knows, when real estate crashes or something drastic happens, or maybe you go through a job loss, right? So, okay. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it. I had a quarter pounder with cheese. If you eat McDonald's, what's your favorite McDonald's? I had a quarter pounder with cheese. It's beautiful. I'll tell you something about McDonald's. Everyone eats there. Everyone eats there. If you don't eat McDonald's, I'm not trying to offend you, but I actually worked for Uber Eats on the side, and I have a video on my account about how I made. Oh, you're a vegetarian. Good for you, man. Good for you. And you're feeling better. Awesome. I wonder if you can have the fries, maybe, right? And I think they're trying to do a Beyond Meat burger at McDonald's, so that could be something for you. But I did Uber Eats. I made $1,500 doing Uber Eats during COVID, and I got my exercise. I walked around. I made some money, and the number one food that everyone ordered from Uber Eats was McDonald's. Coffee, muffins, fries from Mickey D's. Awesome. All right. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's. It's not really brought to you by McDonald's, but I'm going to keep saying that until I get sponsorship. Okay? So I want them to send me some McDonald's one day. But okay, so I think that's enough for the articles. So we talked about condos. Condos, the sales are dropping, but the prices are going up, which makes absolute no sense. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next segment of the show. Wow, it's going by fast. Okay. The next segment of the show is what I'm calling a teachable moment. Okay. So I'm going to share something that I do, and this is my teachable moment for my viewers, and it's how to remove the stress out of your Christmas shopping. Now, typically, I think what happens when people do their Christmas shopping is, by the way, if you're not aware, Christmas happens, I'm pretty sure, once a year, and it happens around the 25th of December. I think we can all agree on that, right? Yet when people do their Christmas shopping, um, they'll buy the gifts, and there'll be a lot of joy. They'll buy a lot of presents. They'll celebrate on Christmas Day, but the week after, the bills, they start piling on. And we all know that, around January 1st, no one wants to look at their credit card statement, right? It's stressful and it's hard to pay off that bill. And I think it's safe to say, for the most part, people buy Christmas presents in this manner, right? We all know Christmas is coming, but nobody plans for it. So here is my teachable moment. I learned about this concept from a software tool called You Need a Budget. Okay, YNAB. I don't work for them. I'm not affiliate for YNAB. I love their tool. They have an amazing budgeting tool. It's not like your typical budgeting. I use it. I got my finances in order. If you're interested, check out YNAB. I have a link in my profile as well. And they talk about a concept called a true expense. Okay, so a true expense is something like a Christmas gifts, right? It's an inevitable expense. You're going to buy Christmas gifts regardless. You're going to buy them every year. Every year you go through this same pattern where you go and you buy some gifts and then you have to pay the bill. So instead, and it causes stress. So to remove that stress, all you have to do is this. So for this Christmas, keep track of your receipts and your total amount. Okay? So everything you're buying, add it all up until you get your final amount. And let's just use an example. So let's say you gather all of your receipts for 2020 and your total bill comes to $1,000. So you spent $1,000 on Christmas gifts. Now, let's say that's your average. Okay, so let's say for 2021, you're probably going to spend a similar amount, another $1,000. So all you have to do, starting December 26th or even starting January 1st, is if you take $1,000 and you divide it by 12, you get $83. So all you have to do is save $83 per month. If you divide that by 2, that's $40 out of every paycheck. If you do that from from January to December for an entire month, for an entire year, then you'll save up $1,000. So by the time that Christmas comes around for 2021, you'll be fully funded. And if you do this forever, then you'll eliminate the stress from your Christmas shopping. So that is my teachable moment. So that is an example of something called a true expense. So YNAB talks about true expenses. That's how I budget my money, actually. I have all my true expenses listed out. It's not only Christmas gifts, it's all sorts of stuff, but I don't want to get into all of those details to overwhelm you. So I just gave you one example of Christmas presents and how you can conquer the stress of purchasing those gifts just by planning ahead. Okay, so once again, brought to you by McDonald's. I just wanted to talk briefly to my audience about a course that I do have. It is in my profile. It's called How to Budget Through Better Habits. If you're interested, check out the course. I'm not here to pressure you on it, but I will talk about my course on my lives to let you know that it is available to, it's a very beginner focused course on getting better with money. So if you know anyone who needs something that's very simple, it's not about investing, it's just about learning how to save your money. I gave you an example of the true expense in the teachable moment part of the live. It's along those lines, and I think one of the reasons I created my account was because of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he created a video and he said something like, "Nobody teaches you how to save your money," and it took me a while. I'm actually in my 40s, and it took me a while to learn how to get good with money. And that's why I wanted to create this account. I just wanted to share some basic savings tips, strategies for people who are struggling, right? For people who might have credit card debt, who might not have any savings, or don't know how to start an emergency fund. I did create a course. It's a Udemy course. It's super cheap right now. It's in my profile. If anyone is interested, have a look. Last but not least, the last segment of the show is the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, see Jonathan is still hanging in there. I really appreciate it, Jonathan. We're almost going to wrap up. And I'm going to write down your name because I'm going to remember you. So it's Jonathan H63. Okay. Jonathan H63. You are one of the first audience members of Live with Zai on Sunday night at 7 p.m. I'm going to do this every Sunday night, 7 p.m. until we have 1 million viewers and I end up on CNN Money or something like that. So this is the Q&A portion. If there are any questions, feel free. If you have any money questions, you probably don't because it sounds like you're a good investor already. But there is one question that does continuously come up, and I see it amongst other TikTok channels, and it's how do I start, or how do I decide between building an emergency fund or paying down my credit card debt? And I think there are two schools or two trains of thought when it comes to these two questions. I know there's someone named Dave Ramsey who's a financial guru, and he talks about paying down credit card debt first. And mainly his reasoning is that you spend a lot of interest on your credit cards, so it's important to pay down your credit cards so that you're not spending that interest. You're not spending on interest, right? You're spending a lot of money on your credit cards. And then there's another school who believes that it's more important to build an emergency fund. And the reason for that is so that you can avoid going into further debt by having an emergency fund. So I don't think to me, in my opinion, I don't think there is a clear-cut answer if you should start with an emergency fund or paying down your debt first. I would actually suggest that someone learn how to save their money better, learn how to prioritize their money so that they can begin to save. Because if you're in credit card debt and you don't have an emergency fund, then it's probably likely you're not good with saving money to begin with, right? So I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, but I think my answer is learn how to save your money first, develop some good habits to save your money, and then when you have a good chunk of money, then you can decide on whether you want to put it into your emergency fund or your credit card, right? And it's going to depend on your situation too. So like if you're doing really well at work and there's a lot of job security, then you might not need an emergency fund right now. Maybe your credit card is killing you. Or if things are really rocky and you need to work on your emergency fund, then build that up first and then worry about the credit card, right? So it depends on your scenario, but my answer is focus on learning how to prioritize your savings and getting better with money. Okay. So that ends that segment. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. That was episode 1 of Live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Jonathan and hello, Nicole. See you've joined here. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. I am going to go live again next Sunday night at 7 p.m. with another episode of Live with Zai, where we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about how you manage your money and what you think about money in general, and in particular savings. I'm not really going to talk too much about, like advanced investment topics, right? Because I think that's another channel and there's tons of accounts like that. But I think what I want to teach is how to get better with developing better financial and personal savings habits. So with that, if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you once again for joining. I will be live again next Sunday at 7 p.m. Join me then. Just a reminder, this episode was brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Cheers. Have a good night.